get into the VAR controversy. I like to stay neutral in all of this, but I feel like I'm going to have to pull you up on some of those VAR decisions. And I know Darren certainly has got a couple that he'd like to talk about. But in terms of the way the title race went this weekend, there was just that little bit of drama, in the sense that we've talked about for the last few seasons, where one team slips up in a game that they'd be expected to win. Yeah. The door opens for the others, but then City didn't make it look easy. With Liverpool, it wasn't that easy against Chelsea, who now look, on performance, if not result, like a proper Champions League contender.
Yeah, I mean, as you said there, you look at Liverpool and Manchester City, and to me, it looks like two teams that are almost comfortable in their surroundings and look like they know what they need to do to get it over the line. And maybe with Arsenal a little bit, the pressure is starting to gather a little bit with some of the decisions they've made. The recklessness a little bit as well, you'd have to say, from Saliba, who we don't ever see that from. So, and as for Chelsea, yeah, they look really good. And I thought they'd finish inside the top four. I think the performance, although they got beat, says, OK, I think they're now moving in the right direction. So, yeah, I mean, for me, Manchester City and certainly Liverpool are certainly the two teams now you'd have to say are in pole position to fight it out for the title. Not saying Arsenal won't be there, but certainly looking at it this weekend, seeing them all play, two teams out of that three who we kind of perceive as the big three going for the Premier League title. Two of them look like they're handling the occasion well, and one team just looks like they're starting to falter a little bit. We'll talk Arsenal a little bit later, but as promised, we'll start with that game at Anfield between Liverpool and Chelsea. I feel that maybe it was the game this weekend that we learned the most from, or that we had most questions before, that we've gone some way to answering, Rachel.
A little bit. I think I always felt optimistic at the start that Liverpool had the potential to sort of get back to that consistent level we saw in those few years in their prime with Klopp. Chelsea have probably been not entirely surprised, but they've built up some momentum where all of a sudden there's a lot of people going, oh, Chelsea look good. And I think probably the game itself, for the most part, they kind of just matched each other. And there was large moments where, you know, it was exciting to watch, but not a lot necessarily happened. And then obviously there was the big decisions that ended up affecting the result of the game. But I think Liverpool will be right up there. And I just think this year we've got more teams that can actually disrupt those top two or three teams we expect to go for the title. So I think there'll be probably more points potentially lost than we've seen in the last few seasons.
Which makes it so much more exciting, which just adds even more jeopardy to the title race. And we want a bit of jeopardy in the title race. Let's be fair. There was jeopardy in that game at Anfield yesterday as well, because while Liverpool took the 3 points, as Rachel was saying, there wasn't that much in it in terms of the performances.
No, there wasn't. I mean, Chelsea's pass completion rate was, I think, 88%. It's the third highest since Opta started collecting data in 2004. And I think as far as their front line were concerned, they played with so much creativity. Yes, Cole Palmer didn't score, but he was always a threat. And I think the way that Liverpool kind of set up, it was almost with an awareness of what Chelsea could do. I expected Liverpool to go on the front foot. Chelsea they'd conceded in 5 of their Premier League games, of the 7 Premier League games they'd played previously. So no matter how good they are going forward, they'll always give you a chance at the back. And I thought on that basis, Liverpool would go on the front foot. But they really were mindful of the threat that Chelsea posed, because Chelsea are that good. They are looking like a serious team. And what it's meant, I think, Kelly, and I think you're absolutely right, it's made it much more... This league is wide open. City don't have Rodri, they don't have Alvarez, they've got no real insurance policy if they were to lose Erling Haaland. We know they can win the title without a striker, but that was when they had Rodri. Now they don't have Rodri, so I think, to me, it looks a little bit wide open. Dare I say, I think even Aston Villa might be able to sneak into that little top four. I know, I'm going to say that.
I like it.
But you're welcome. But I think I look at Unai Emery, and he's a past master at being able to confound doubters. So for the Premier League, I think this could be a really, really high-class title race. Just one more thing very quickly. I think it was a big test, and I was kind of in two minds about the fact that I accept, because of Chelsea's quality, it is their toughest test. But I think as far as Liverpool are concerned, if you look at the team that they lost to, it was Nottingham Forest. And I think titles are generally won by teams who beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And Arsenal lost it last season because they lost to Villa.
Yeah, it was Fulham and West Ham.
Fulham and West Ham. But against the top teams, they did what they were supposed to do.
And against City, they took 4 points.
Absolutely. Whereas the smaller teams, the so-called smaller teams, were the ones that cost them. So I think for Liverpool this season, it was their performance building up to this game that put them, if you like, in a condition for people to say, yes, this is a big test. But I think they'd passed a lot of those tests leading up to this match.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that about beating the teams you're supposed to beat, because what you're suggesting there is it's not going to be the Chelsea result that defines how Liverpool seasons go. It might be the Nottingham Forest defeat after the last international break. There was Darren is our VAR correspondent here in the corner. There was a decision regarding Tosin in this game. Look, right. I tell you what. Let's play it.
Yeah.
And you tell me what you think.
Well, I just don't think it's a red card. I think it's the right decision. And why I think it's the right decision is because, yes, there's still a long way to go. I think Levi Colwill is right there as well. There's not really a lot of pace on the ball as well, so it's not like it's flying away towards goal. So I think it's completely different to the Arsenal one. Yes, it's definitely a yellow card and it's definitely a foul. I'm not saying that. But I just think Levi Colwill was right there in the vicinity as well. Tosin's quick as well. There's a coming together. And for me, it's a booking. It's not like the Arsenal one, which I'm sure we'll speak about later, where Saliba...
We'll see it now, but we will speak about the significance of it a bit later on.
I think if you look in this scenario here, there is literally it's Saliba and Evan Nilsson. There's no one else. Ben White is not catching him there. He's about 30 yards away. Evan Nilsson will take the ball forward, and he's probably next couple of touches will be a shot on goal. I don't think there's any excuse for that.
If they wanted to argue that Ben White is coming back, they could do. Do you know what I mean? It's not like 100%...
They could do, but I mean, he's got to show some kind of pace to get back in there. Whereas Levi Colwill in that last frame is literally right next to Tosin. So I think that's where you have to go. I understand that. And listen, part of me wants to be biased and say it's not, but for me, the William Saliba one is a red card, and the Tosin one's not.
Yeah. Is there agreement? Mm-hmm. No.
The thing that gets me with the Saliba one is, I think it could have been a yellow, and it was given as a yellow. So I was just surprised that they chose to go to the screen, because I think there is an argument for a yellow. I think there's an argument for a red. And off the back of that, I think there's the same argument for the Tosin one. But I feel a little bit unsure about why VAR intervened based on how they say VAR should be used.
You don't think it was as big a mistake, or it was enough of a mistake to overturn it for you?
No, because I still think, similar argument, the ball was further ahead, but it wasn't like it was... on the ground, the ball was bouncing. Similar sort of, that ball there. You're not thinking at that moment this is going to be a goal. Could be a goal.
Is it a goal-scoring opportunity? See, that's where we're coming down to the sort of, the interpretation of the phrase.
But I think the other one could be described as that too. And that's why I think the change is interesting. But I think Saliba's done that, and I've been in that position in the game. With centre-back, you think, I'm going to get away with this here. And you think we're probably far enough away, probably be yellow.
Yeah.
And normally it is. And I think that's an instance where rarely do we see a red card for that.
And I think that's where the similarity is the distance from goal both times. The positioning is slightly different. It's a bit wider for the incident at Anfield. What do you think, Darren?
Yeah, I think distance is one of the 4 criteria that they judge a decision on. I think the Arsenal one is a red card. I think that one isn't, because of the proximity of the other covering defenders that would have been able to stop it, whereas I think with the Arsenal one, Ben White's further away. You might be able to argue the case that his speed might have enabled him to cut the ball out or cut Evan Nilsson out. Probably shouldn't phrase it like that, but I think as far as where the ball lands, Evan Nilsson's got the best chance of being able to get it and home in on goal, whereas I don't think that's the same case with the other.
Also, it's denying a goal-scoring opportunity. I think for the Tosin one with Jota, like Levi Colwill is literally 2 yards away, so I think he's probably going to cover, or he'd have to do a lot to kind of get to goal. I mean, look at it, Levi Colwill's right there in the vicinity. Yeah. Whereas as the Arsenal one, Ben White is so far away. Yeah. Like me being a centre forward in that scenario, certainly the other one with Saliba, I'm thinking, right, roll him, I'm in on goal. Yes. My thought process is touch up my feet, have a shot at goal. Jota would have had a lot to do there by holding off Tosin and then trying to avoid Colwill as well. I think so many scenarios in that instance could go wrong for Jota to get a shot off, whereas it's just Saliba versus Evan Nilsson and that's it. It's just 1v1. So again, I feel the Saliba one is a red card, and I think VAR were right to intervene. Whereas Tosin's, I don't think at all.
The other thing to note in that game, and Jota getting into that position, is those direct balls that went straight into the heart of that Chelsea defence were causing them problems. It's what Darren was alluding to earlier, how vulnerable Chelsea can look at times defensively.
Yeah, they can, but sometimes I think also you can be vulnerable because they have been so good and they do have large spells in possession and they do go forward with numbers. That also would be something Liverpool would have thought, like, go central and forward quickly as we can and get bodies up with the play. It naturally does make you vulnerable. You know, often goals are conceded in the transition moments. That's why those phases of the game are so important. And I think probably Chelsea, because they've had more possession so far this season, they've dominated teams, they're now having to deal with those transitions a lot more, and they're probably just adapting to that exposure. And they've also got some younger players that are playing in those positions, which naturally you just get a higher element at times of that concentration and just little mistakes factoring in. That in the Premier League, every team has somebody that can punish you in one or two moments.
And that lack of experience of playing together is playing its part in that. And I think that's one of the things that we're learning about Arne Slot's Liverpool, is that they are more, not direct, vertical is the word I'm looking for, but they are more, whereas with Klopp it would very, very broadly speaking, it would tend to go out to the full-backs and it would come to... It's more narrow. Certainly the game against Chelsea, it was more narrow from him, but that has been a bit of a hallmark of the changes that he's implementing.
I think so, and also I'd say that there is less intensity about the way that Liverpool play compared to under Klopp. Under Klopp, it was heavy metal, gegenpressing, whatever you want to call it, and it was just full on. And I wonder if that might have contributed to some of the injuries that they've had in recent seasons as well. This is more forensic, this is calmer, but it's more precise. It's more considered, and when they do sort of turn up the heat, they really can sort of squeeze the life out of opponents. But the numbers there tell their own story. What they've managed to do is have and I think this was a key between the two sides yesterday. There's an organisation about the way that Liverpool play in defence. Yeah, they're settled. There's an understanding with the goalkeeper. The number of times Sanchez made unforced errors, giving the ball away, his positioning on the goal, his lack of understanding with the back four. And that was the case even when Cucurella and Fofana were available. They just don't have that cohesion in their backline compared to Liverpool, where there's a real understanding between the players, whether it's with Alisson or whether it's with Kelleher. I think that's the reason why they are serious contenders for the league.
Do you know, there's more structure to the way they defend as well, Liverpool. I feel with our young Klopp, which I used to love watching, I almost feel like as soon as someone lost the ball, whoever was nearest, they'd just all go all together. Yes. And you're like, how do you keep that for so long? Whereas you look at Arne Slot and the way that they press and the way they wing the ball back, it's almost like there's triggers and there's little points where they'll kind of sit in their shape for a little bit, and then one decides to go, then they'll all go. And it is conserving energy, but also as well, I think it's a lot more structured. It's harder to play against, harder to break down, because now when you're trying to play through that press, there's like 5 or 6 bodies there, whereas Klopp at times, there might be 1 or 2 or 3 maybe again, and it's easy to kind of go through. But with Arne Slot, the moment they get back into that shape with Gravenberch and whoever the two, Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones yesterday, the moment that maybe Jota goes, they all go up behind him, and it's hard to play against, but I can understand why they're doing it. Yeah,
and that defensive record is so good. As we saw there, 5 in 11 in all competitions. It's 3 goals conceded in 8 games in the Premier League. How much of that is down? Darren was talking about the structure, but not just the structure of the defence, the way that the team is structured. How much does that protect them? Because they're not even allowing particularly high quality shots on goal as well.
Yeah, you can see that quite clearly. You know, there was moments in the game yesterday where I was just looking at that sort of shape aspect of it. And anytime the other team have the ball in their half, they have a very sort of strict structure of the back four, the 2 in front, and even the likes of Salah is covering a more conservative position than what we perhaps, used to kind of bait. He'd be waiting for him to jump. He doesn't do that so much. He thinks, I'm going to work with Trent behind him and try, and then they win the ball back together, and then they progress up the pitch back together. So it does help, and also we saw it, even in the Euros. Teams now, it used to be a case of you press from the front, and there was a lot of focus on that. Now a lot of teams, they go for a lower block because it's so difficult to break down. And that, different games, we're seeing Man City, trying to break down a Wolves team that are, when you have banks of players, it's hard to get good opportunities.
When you watch a game, can you tell that there is that organisation as a centre-half yourself in any given defence compared to, say, another?
Yeah, I like that part of the game, so I probably overanalyze it. I love this finer details, but I think also, experience with the national team, often you're playing teams that have that quality. You choose that structure and you actually grow from it. You become a team that you don't concede goals, and then all of a sudden you start being like, right, let's not actually concede free kicks and corners, and then you're like, let's not actually let them into the box, and all of a sudden you kind of like up your level, and all of a sudden you're not even letting teams in the box, never mind shoot, and a team like Liverpool are going to grow a lot of momentum from that, and I think they'll get better and better, and they're already at a good level.
So much like Arsenal last season, wasn't it, where they stopped wanting to concede, and then they stopped wanting to get players in the box. Then you had Saliba and Gabriel celebrating blocks.
Ben White,
that's exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
Just a quick word before we leave this game and move on to Arsenal, on Nicholas Jackson and his development, because obviously a goal in that game. And is the finishing coming, do you think? Because I know you've been here before and you've been talking to Righty about it before and talked about all the attributes he has elsewhere as this game. Is the finishing coming?
Yeah, the composure, certainly. I mean, he's always going to score goals because his movement's so good and he always gets into those areas. It was that last little bit, could he kind of pull it all together? Now, he scored goals last season, but there were still times where he was so erratic in front of goal. But I think it was the West Ham game this season where he went through outside of the boot and I thought, OK, he's clearly learning. But even this one here, this is not an easy finish, by the way, because he's got a defender coming from the right-hand side as well. The touch has got to be perfect, and then just the composure to roll it past him. So I just think he's clearly been working on it because he just looks so much more calm and composed. And whenever he does finish, like that game there, you just almost see him just go, whoosh, slow it down and then finish it off. So I think he's a real asset to that Chelsea team, certainly with the way that they play and the chances they create. If he can keep kind of improving, keep working at it, he could easily be at 15 to 20 goals a season because he gets so many chances.